Hello and welcome along. Here in this video, I'm going to be talking about workgroups inside MigrationWiz. Now, workgroups are particularly handy when you are not the only person working on a migration project. Sometimes you do smaller migrations, you can just handle it yourself, but there are times where you might have a much larger client and you might need to have multiple people working on the same project or projects that are inside that particular workgroup. So I'm going to show you now how we can create them and how they can be particularly useful in sharing those projects across your different teams. So let me first explain what a workgroup really is. And you can see I've got two set up in here. When you log in, your login is just your view, obviously, into the MigrationWiz system. But a workgroup is something that you belong to. Part of your login actually belongs to, and you can either be like an administrator of that or just a user of that. But the workgroup is really the set of security boundaries, if you like, on all the different projects, licenses, subscriptions, agents, customers, everything. Everything is contained inside a workgroup, and the workgroups can't share data between each other. So they become, as I say, a security boundary between those different items. So if you had a project, let's say you've got one particular customer and you've got maybe 10 different projects in there. Might have a mailbox project, you've got a OneDrive project in there, you've got a SharePoint or a Teams project in there, and you could have all of those projects inside that workgroup, and then you might want to share that with different people. You might have someone that's doing the SharePoint migration or someone that's looking after OneDrive, and they can all then have rights into the workgroup so they can do their particular things. Now, what they can not do is jump across to a different workgroup that you've got with your login without the appropriate membership of the workgroup. Essentially what it means is you can take a customer for a workgroup. That's the way I like to do it. Have a customer in there, put all the projects for that customer, bring people in to work on that customer, and you can all share that data and work on it without having everybody look at everything you do with every customer. So let me show you how that works. I might put a bit more context about if you see it so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. So when you first log in, it'll take you to your default one, as you can see here, just called Mark Workgroup. You can see underneath I've got all my different migration projects that are in that workgroup. If I go to my projects, we can see these are all of the ones that I have active in there. So if I were to go back up one here and I click on the test workgroup, which as you can see, I'm an administrator of that one, the whole screen changes. And you can see I've now can look at the projects that are in that workgroup. And you can see if I go back here, I can only see one. Now look at this as well. Look at the licenses. You would have seen on the other screen I had plenty of licenses, but here I don't have any in this particular workgroup. So the licenses are constrained to the workgroups as well as. Now, of course, we can do coupon generation and redeeming between the workgroups as you would do like between customers and between other entities. So the license transfer can obviously work, but they don't show up immediately just because you have a login. They're not bound to the login. The licenses are bound to the workgroup. So remember that. The workgroup is what contains all of those items, and the workgroups, as I said at the start there, are completely separate entities. So let's go and create a brand new workgroup, put some projects in there, and I'm going to share it with some of the other users and see what they can see and how we can all work together on those. Now, the workgroups themselves are not accessible in this screen here. You need to go across here and go to MSP Complete. That's where they're driven from. And you can see here we might go to, you can see in here if we go to different people and things, you'd see the ones for that workgroup. But to create a brand new workgroup, you go to add and would say workgroup. Now remember that once you create a workgroup, you can't delete it. So you could obviously rename it and call it inactive and take things out of it. But essentially, once you create it, it's going to be there for you. So we'll call this one demonstration workgroup. Like so, save on that. And it will create that brand new identity. It gets a new GUID, as you can see up the top here. Now, because I created that under my login, you'll see that if I go here and I actually just refresh that page, it should show up in here. There we are, demonstration workgroup. So I can now go into that workgroup in the MigrationWiz screen, and I can see I've got nothing in there, which is exactly what I would expect to see. And if I go to licenses as well, let's have a look at licenses. I will have nothing in there as well. I'm expecting, yes, there we go, nothing at all. If I go to customers, I'm going to have just the default customer. So you can see it's a brand new entity inside the MigrationWiz console, which is perfect because we are going to, as I say, call that one for a particular client that we're going to build these projects for, and then add some people in. So I'm just going to go away now, and I'm just going to create 2 projects here. No need to waste time showing you how to do that. We all know how to create projects inside MigrationWiz, but this is purely for the concept of the project sharing and also the work group management. So give me a second, I'll come back to you with that. All right, so there I have 2 new projects in there. We've got a Teams Move and a OneDrive migration, and you can see here we are from the demonstration work group. That is the entity we've done there. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to share that with another person so we can see them actually be able to get in and actually do some work on these projects. First thing we need to do is go up here and say enable project sharing. I'm going to turn that on and then drop back there for us. Now what I also want to show you is if we want to change this name, if we want to give it a name of a customer perhaps, what you do there is you go back into that MSP complete there. And if you look at the settings on this, you can change the name here. So we might call this with a customer name instead. So we just change that name, Widgets Inc., like that, and then we just jump back into the main screen there. Obviously, we need a quick refresh on that to make that come through. We should see now, there we are, Widgets Inc. So in this particular example, what I'm doing is making this the customer name, so then people that come into it, the agents or the team members that we bring in, know this as being for this customer, which is Widgets Inc. All right, so how are we going to add some people in there? Now, every person you add in must have a BitTitan log on already. So you're going to have to get people to, if they don't have a BitTitan account already, they're going to need to go in and sign up for one. Obviously, it's a free thing. They don't need to pay for anything in there. They just need to create that log on. What you then do is if you go to the People tab here, you can see there's our agents, and you can see there's the one we have for myself. We then say invite agents. And here we go. So we select a role. Now these roles are important. So let me tell you what they do. Firstly, the administrator is obviously at the top level. So the administrator of a work group can do everything in there. It can do the license management. It can add people. It can remove people. Do any work inside any of the projects. Basically, it is the master admin for the project. The manager is somebody that can't change any of the billing credentials and do any of that work inside a work group, but they can start to manage the people. So it's more of a manager of people scenario there. If you want to assign a team lead, they can add and remove agents and change the roles around for the agents up to that level, but they can't do anything from the the financial side of things. And of course, the associate really is just an agent. They can get in there and they can work on the projects and they can do anything they need to do in the migration projects themselves, but obviously they can't add more agents in or give the rights away or buy licenses, anything like that. They are purely an agent. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add an associate because that's the person I want to bring in, and then I'll put an email address of who that's going to be. So put that email address there, Bob Jones at Cozy Mouse, and we just hit invite. And what that'll do is it's going to send them an invite through the email. And you can see if I hit invited there, you can see he's been invited, expires in a month. So they're going to get a notification that they have been invited to Widgets Inc. And they need to then accept that invitation, and then they should be able to see that work group. Now you'll notice here there's also teams. These teams are really related to the work which we used to do with MSP Complete. So they're not really relevant for migration tasks inside MigrationWiz. So in this case, I'm going to ignore those because as you can see, it's talking about putting things from the runbooks and queues, but we don't use those inside MigrationWiz, so no need to go down that track. So looking at Bob's email here, you can see there's the invite that's come through. So we're going to go in and say, yes, accept that invitation. There we go. And accept. And it'll drop us into that login screen. So let's log in as Bob here and see what Bob can see. Okay. So we can see here that he has had the Widgets Inc. one turn up here. So we click on Widgets Inc. And he should be able to see exactly what I see in the other screen. There we are. Look, there's the Teams Move, the OneDrive migration, and he's now got access to these projects. And what he can do as well, he's got access to go to around the different work groups. He's got his own work group that he's got full access in. He can do his own little projects in there if he wants to. But you can see for the Widgets Inc. one, he's got access into these. Now, if I were to go to Bob's here and look, you can see he's actually limited on what he's got there. On the other screen, if I just drop that away and go to this one here, you can see I've got things like coupons and licenses and the like here, but under this work group with logging in as Bob, he does not have that. So that's where it comes back to him being an associate rather than the administrator of that work group. He's got access to do anything in the project, like add people in and kick off migrations and things. He just can't do that management of that back-end financial side. So in the project there, as I'll show you there, you can go in there and he can do anything with these items. He can go and kick off these migrations and start them. He can do all of that work and work on these projects. Now, anything he does in there, obviously it's a shared project, so I'm going to see that change and the work that he's doing inside my work group as well, because essentially it's the same thing, right? Now, you could have multiple people in there. You don't have to have just one person. You could have a migration team of, say, 10 different agents working inside these projects. And you could say to the agents, hey, you do OneDrive, you do SharePoint, and you just have all the projects together, and then they work on their particular unit. So it really becomes that collaborative effort for that client, which is quite perfect, because previously, like years ago, we used to have to then share the identities and share the passwords for these for people. But having the workgroup concept and the agent concept is very, very good for sharing projects and being able to work collaboratively inside MigrationWiz. Now, let's suppose we've taken Bob off of this project for Widget Sync. Let's assign him to another one, and we want to remove his rights in there. Let's see how we do that and what that does to his logon and how that affects his ability to see things. So what we do is we're going back in here. Now, I do need to just refresh this from before because it'll show up that Bob Jones is there. What I would be doing there is I would go here and I'm going to edit the role. We can also set it to inactive here, but if we do the edit there, you can see I can change it and make it inactive and change his rights around. And we hit save, and you can see he becomes an inactive person. We can't remove him or delete him. We just make him inactive in there. And what that'll do is it'll take away his rights to be able to see things. So if I were to go back here and I then hit a refresh and just try and refresh in the middle, you see it's going to fail for him. You can see there it's not working. If I go back to the dashboard, you can see that now he still can see what he can see in obviously in Widget Sync, but it shows up now as inactive, 0 projects, and he can't see anything inside here anymore. So instantly his rights to access that work group and obviously all the projects that are in there is completely removed instantly, as you saw that happen in real time there. So we go back to our main screen here. Let's just go up to our projects. You can see there's our projects for that one work group. And as you can see here, we can have as many work groups as we require. So set them up however you choose, put them into your own logical units. And whether you want to do it per customer or you might want to put it per team of people that you're working on different customers together, however you want to lay that out, completely up to you. But it's just a very nice functional unit to have work groups set aside, to have all of those, as I said right at the start, the security boundaries around the projects, the customers, the agents, the licenses, the financial details in there. Everything can be segmented off inside a particular work group and then have teams accessing it, all accessible if you're an administrator there through your one single BitTitan logon, which is again very handy. So just adds an extra bit of depth to how you want to control projects rather than trying to have all of your projects just in one single work group. It's obviously a good way to manage things going forward. So thank you for watching that. I hope that was useful. If you need a bit more in-depth information in some of those items I was talking about, the Help Center does have some good articles on exactly how you'd go through and create work groups and some of the other questions you might have. Or you can obviously reach out to the help desk and ask them as well. So please feel free to do that. But we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again for watching.